All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is Tuesday, September 8th at 6:30, and we have a full dais. We have Councilmember Jackson virtually with us, so I am calling this meeting to order. This is a very special meeting. It is a meeting where we are going to talk about our budget and our tax rate. And one of the reasons that we are doing it separately at 6:30 is even though we are in an emergency declaration, the governor has made it clear that everyone needs an opportunity to make a comment on budget and tax rates. And so it was mandatory that we open City Hall and council chambers so that if any of our citizens had any comments that they wanted to share with us, that they had the ability to come. So council, you'll see on the agenda tonight that we have two items. We're going to be holding a public hearing for both of the items, and then we'll hold a public hearing and take action. We'll hold the second public hearing and take action. They're in a very specific order to be in line with the legislative outline of exactly how we're supposed to do things. And our Chief Financial Officer, Tracy Waldron, has provided very specific words that must be said when someone feels inclined to make their motion. So I would encourage you to follow those words so that Ms. Waldron doesn't have to run to the microphone and ask us to restate our motion. We're just trying to make sure that we do everything in order. For the folks who are watching us from home, you will be aware that the entire budget was a part of the packet, and also the supporting documentation for the tax rate is also a part of this packet. So with that, I am going to move us to item 2A. One other thing I'll say is that the normal things that we do at 6:30, we're going to be doing at 7 o'clock. That is the other posted agenda that is 4 pages. So that's when we'll do pledges and invocation and all of that. Since that meeting is posted at 7, whatever time we get done with this 6:30 meeting, of course, we won't be able to start that meeting until 7. So with that, council, if you'll move to page 2 of your 6:30 agenda, you'll see that we are on item 2A, hold a public hearing and consider action to approve the first reading of ordinance number 2020-27 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, adopting a budget for the fiscal year 2020 to 2021, October 1st, 2020 through September 30th of 2021, attached as Exhibit A, providing for the expenditures for said fiscal year be made in accordance with said budget, providing a severability clause, establishing an effective date, proper notice and meeting, and move to include on the September 22nd, 2020 agenda for a second reading. With that, Ms. Waldron.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mayor and Council, I do have a few slides just to point out a few things. This was in detail in the staff report, so the entire table is included. The ones that are grayed on this table are the ones that actually had a change in the budget page. You'll notice from the packet, I had some errors from my detail to my summary, so this was to tie all that and make it a nice, neat bow. But in the BP&L fund, we did change some community support. We took out the Community Action Incorporated, and then we increased CASA's amount by $600. So that's the change in that fund. In the Innovation Fund, I just went in and went ahead and carried over the skate park project. It has not started as of today. And so we went ahead and entered that as a carryover. In the Grants Fund, we went ahead and we talked about adding the CARES Act, the 25% that can be granted to the Economic Development Corporation. In the Parks Trail Dedication Fund, I also went ahead and just carried over that skate park project amount. And in the Hotel Tax Fund, there was a few changes. We went ahead and took out the true-up credit for Visit Bastrop. I updated, I had a little error in my debt amount, and also removed the event funding from the Main Street budget. Other than that, everything on the detailed pages was the same from one budget to the next. On rates and fees, we did talk about the cemetery plot prices, and on my computer that looked good, but in translation it's a little cattywonker, but So this budget does include those increases, and they are a part of the master fee schedule at the back. Those are the only rates that changed.
Ms. Waldron, did you change the assumption of 2,000 for the average plot price?
I didn't change the assumption.
Which makes
Yeah,
perfect
I
sense, 'cause we
didn't.
don't know what the
I didn't change the revenue, I just changed the
We don't know what the
rates.
mix is going to be,
We
right?
don't.
So, okay, so that makes sense. So from a budget standpoint, you used a projected average number of plots that we would sell and you price of 2,000 just to do the projection.
Just to get a
But
number,
then, if council approves this budget, then the plot prices will be the 1,500 and 3,500.
Yes.
Okay.
I believe that's just the all fund summary. So the budget would be appropriating $68,106,207 in totality. And that's all I have for an update.
Council, do you have any questions for Ms. Waldron?
Yes, ma'am. And I'm just going by my memory, so did we all shake our heads on 3,500 for the out of town on the cemetery? I was thinking it was different numbers.
I went back and looked at the video.
Okay, all right, good,
Because
thank
I
you.
had to make sure my notes were correct.
But we haven't voted yet, so
Oh, I
if you want to
understand.
propose
That's
a
right.
different price, now's the time, but.
I had originally thought we'd went to 2,000 for I thought it was 2 and 3, but I didn't go back and watch the video. So if you watch the video, then I'm fine with that.
Anybody else, okay? Councilmember
Do
Ennis?
you, in your best judgment, do you think 2,000 would be too onerous
For in-city,
for in-city?
What is it right now?
it's 1,000 and 1,500 for out of
So wait
residence.
5 years and then go to 2,000?
Or wait a year? We look at
Or
these
Yeah,
all
we
the
wait a year
time.
and then go to
You know,
2,000?
we look at our rates every year, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Councilmember Rogers, you okay? Okay. Any other questions for Ms. Waldron before we have a public hearing? All right, I'm officially opening the public hearing for item 2A. Madam Secretary, do we have anyone signed up to speak?
No, we do not, Mayor.
Hi, Mr. Scarnoulis. We have to say hi to Mr. Scarnoulis. We're so happy to have an audience member. It's great to see you, Ed. All right, I'm officially closing the public hearing. And I am happy to entertain a motion or further discussion.
Madam Mayor, I move that the city council adopt the budget as presented.
A second?
I have a motion from Mayor Pro Tem Nelson and a second from Councilmember Rogers. Is there any further discussion? Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers,
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson,
Yes.
Councilmember Ennis,
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously, so that is the first reading of the budget, and it will be on the September 22nd for the second and final reading of that ordinance. We're moving on to item 2B, hold a public hearing and consider action to approve the first reading of ordinance number 2020-28 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, adopting the tax rate and levying ad valorem taxes for the fiscal year 2020 to 2021 to provide revenue for the payment of current expenditures, providing a severability clause, establishing an effective date, proper notice in meeting, and move to include on the September 22nd, 2020 agenda for a second reading. Ms. Waldron.
All right, so just a review of the tax rates. We are proposing a tax rate of .5794. This is composed of .3845 M&O rate and a .1949 debt rate. The 3.3845 is 3.5% higher than the no new revenue M&O rate that was calculated at .3715. And our total no new revenue tax rate as calculated was .5656. This budget will raise more revenue from property taxes than last year by approximately $188,000. It is a 0.05% increase from last year, and new taxes for new property is almost $135,000. The average homestead value was 2009. This rate will be approximately $32 on average more for the average homestead owner.
And Ms. Waldron, do you want to speak, is that your last slide? Do you want to speak to the fact that when we posted the tax rate in the newspaper, let's go over what that rate is, just to make sure that people understand that this budget rate is lower than what they saw in the paper.
Yes, we posted the voter approval rate of 5.961. So this proposed.
0.5, not 5.
0.5961. Too many numbers. So this proposed tax rate is quite a bit less than that at 0.5794.
And council, you'll remember that we did that voter approval rate because that gave us the maximum flexibility, and we stated in the meeting that we very well expected to have a lower tax rate. And what our city manager presented to us on August 11th was even lower than what staff had presented to us on July 30th. So the $32 is based on the average home price is the most current information, but some people will compare last year's average home price and last year's rate to this year's average home price and this year's rate. So, it's math, and you can do it a lot of different ways, but, and we also know some people's appraisals went up considerably. A lot of folks have taxes that are frozen. Some folks, for other reasons, their appraisal rate may have gone down. So it's very difficult for us to say exactly how each person's tax bill is going to change. But for the math of, if you have a $209,000 house, you're paying $32, and that is a year more on the portion of your taxes that you pay to the city of Bastrop. Councilmember Rogers?
Thank you. Tracy, do you know what the average rate was going to be if it was the proposed, like in the newspaper? I mean, was it going to be like $50? So I just was curious that people were upset with, not understanding that was just a proposed, not
I
what we
looked
were
at
actually.
that schedule today, but
It was like,
it was more. I think it might have been like 60, 61.
Right,
think
so
it was
it's almost like half than what
Yes.
what they were thinking. So I just wanted to give something for them to think, well,
It was
if they
65,
read the
wasn't it,
article, they were thinking it was going to be $60 a year, and actually it's going to be around 32 for that average price home.
Right.
So I just wanted to give them a comparison. Thank you, Mayor.
thank you, Councilmember Rogers. And Trey was saying 65, and I think if we did the math like we're doing now, it was 65. And if you did the math with the old average price, I think the number was like 91. And I think that's what was published in the paper.
Because there was
an
a
even
higher gap
number.
because they were using the comparison between the change in one year to the next.
Right. But you're making a fantastic point. If people read the paper and they're expecting $60 or $95 a year, we're showing what
This
we're
is
adopting
less.
is $32 based on an average home price of $209,000. Thank you for that clarification, because that's the number people will remember from the paper. Yeah. Okay, council, and this also, it's important that we note, we had the conversation that we're in a declaration, and there's a lot of folks that believe that from Senate Bill 2, it waived the 3.5 cap, but we are within the 3.5%, so there's been some journalists reporting that there would be some payback for any cities that went over the 3.5. We won't even be involved in those discussions. We're at the 3.5. It's $32 a year, and it is the tax rate assumption that's been used for all of the document that you previously approved in item 2A. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Waldron? I'd like to officially open the public hearing. Madam Secretary, do we have anyone signed up to speak?
No, Mayor.
All right, I'm officially closing the public hearing, and I'm happy to entertain a very specifically worded motion if anyone on council would like to make one.
Mayor, I'd like to approve the first reading of ordinance 2020-28 and have it moved to September 22nd, 2020 agenda for second reading.
This is, and you want to add that part.
And I move that the property tax rate be increased by adoption of the tax rate of 0.5794 per $100 valuation, which is effective a 3.5% increase in the tax rate.
I have a motion from Councilmember Peterson.
Second.
I have a second from Councilmember Ennis. Is there any further discussion? Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yes.
Councilmember Ennis.
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Nelson.
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Council, these are the only two items that we have on the agenda for this 6:30 meeting. It is 6:45. I'll be happy to entertain a motion, Mr. Peterson.
I move to adjourn the 6:30 meeting.
We are adjourned at 6:45, and for the public, we will be back at 7 p.m. for our regularly scheduled agenda. We are adjourned.